I believe.
Okay, I noticed that myself, and I'd suggest in the future that scheduling the agenda, it would be great if we could keep like things together.
Yeah, it was just an error.
Reverse C and D.
Yep, switch C under regular business.
Okay. Are there any other changes to the agenda? If not, without objection, we'll approve the agenda. Item number 5 is the consent agenda items, our minutes, the travel education, human services report. Do any of the commissioners have any questions on any of those? If not, we'll approve the consent agenda without objection. Go on to routine business. Approval of the claims. The chair would entertain a motion.
Second.
Moved by Miller, second by Wyseth. Discussion? Stacy from staff or any department heads, do you have any, excuse me, anything you'd like to clarify? Okay. If not, please call the roll.
Wyseth?
Aye.
Krogman?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Falcon? Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We'll move on to our department head reports. Vicki, I guess you're at the far end. We'll let you come first with the Ms. Busef from the finance department.
Good morning.
Morning.
With our office, just what I'd have to report is we sent all of our delinquent letters out. We had about 1,000 this year, so we were down probably about 80 from the prior years, so not a lot of difference. We're preparing for our tax certificate sale, which is December 15th, and the levies are out in Pier, still not being approved yet. Hopefully by the middle of December, we'll get those approved. And otherwise, it's business as usual. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Just curious, out of the number that you're sending out, how many are just happen to be an oversight or something? Yeah.
Oh, there's probably, I would say, maybe up to 10%. Otherwise, the rest of them are just always the same ones that are on there.
Okay.
Yeah. But there's probably a good 10% that, you know, they've been in already and got it straightened out since we sent the letters.
Number of parcels and happen to miss one for whatever reason.
Right, exactly. So, yes, they do. It goes up the 1st of November, and it's the same penalty to the end of November. So when we send out the letters, it's got the penalty amount right on it, so they can send it in, and that is good till the end of the month. And as long as they're paid by the end of November, they won't be published in the paper. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Vicki? Thank you.
Thank you.
Sheriff Stanwyck. You're passed. Okay. Mr. Burke from Highway. Morning, Dick.
Well, basically, we've been busy on roads with snow removal and cold temperatures and getting equipment ready to handle that. Also, we had a accident on 11 last Thursday or the Thursday before, I'm sorry, and we went out and looked at some of the ditch work, but there's not anything minor, I guess, that a person could do to alleviate that. So I'm just going to take a look at it as we can put together some ideas and see what might happen. But it's extremely unfortunate, but yet, you know, it's not really any different than any other roads we have in the county. So you'll probably get some feedback on that. Then also, I've put together my list. I don't have a legible one that I could hand out, but hopefully by the time your packet comes out the next time, on structures that are less than 20 feet, that as a priority, what would they be? And I've got 6 of them listed, and it's not anything that, you know, a person needs to say this has to be first, this has to be second, so forth. It's just a good starting point so you realize, you know, what I would consider the 6 most important ones. Should there be funding available? You gave me more funding for 2015 to deal with some of this stuff, and I think it'd be just a good point, but I'd like to keep the board in the loop so that, you know, should there be a concern or something that you might see as more important, just let me know. But it's a very good, I think, starting point and a positive way to address this in an organized and hopefully priorities will agree, and we'll get started on taking a little initiative on our own to address some of this stuff. So that's...
Dick, would traffic count make a difference to in looking at what prioritizing those or
It could have some. The difference in a traffic count situation, I guess for priorities, I was looking mainly at structural things that could limit it. I also looked at what would be the worst case scenario if you had to close it or if it was a total failure. What would traffic have to do? Then yes. I don't want to say I ignore it. I just didn't put it as high a priority because our traffic patterns have really grown in the use by commercial size vehicles. And you'll also see as we get further into the bridge report for 2014 that Banner did, we're starting to see some accelerated rates of deterioration and stress on some of these structures. So it's going to be a kind of a balancing act, and traffic will certainly come into play. And what I'm hoping to do is process this stuff so that we can stay abreast of it, that we won't have total failure. I guess that's my goal. But yes, it comes into play. Right now, not as important as. Right. Right. And sometimes there's, you know, it's maybe just a wing wall caving in. Maybe the end of the deck is starting to sink. The abutment is getting scoured underneath. Those types of things. And that's the other reason for this priority. And I hate to say that this is etched in stone, because when I get through the other 215 of them, you know, we might come up with some other things. There's also bridge structures that are probably doable from a local budgeting standpoint, and that's the other side of the equation that we have to look at, so that we're getting kind of an aggressive approach, but yet still keeping within a realistic parameters that we're not going to go wild, so to speak, or get the cart in front of the horse. The other thing with the ones I've been in contact with the DOT and the bridges and structures that we have on the replacement program, I always stay in touch with them, because once they start the engineering or even the paperwork process of starting the project, then we're kind of tied into their staying with their procedure. And if they haven't, then we can still juggle and drop and whatever. So that's the other side that I'm working on too, but I think it'll all come out to play. It's just about $197 million short is all right now. No, just kidding. It's just one of those things that funding is definitely going to be a challenge, and we just got to work with what we got and do the best we can. So that's all I've got.
Questions for Dick? Dick, I think what you've got is kind of a miniature strategic plan, if you wish to call it that, just kind of a working document that you work off. You recognize probably those that are going to need to be replaced first, and not in any particular order, but that group of them is probably the
Right.
first ones to tackle.
These would definitely be a good start.
Yeah.
Dick, quick question for you. You said these are less than 20 feet ones, and so the over the 20 feet banners, looking at all of those, right? Or no?
They've just finished their inspections, and we just got the report only about a week ago, so I haven't had time. But in that report, they give you how the structures have changed in the last 2 years. So that's what I'm putting together. You asked if there's some that we could maybe pay for ourselves.
Right.
That's what I'll come up with in the next branch.
Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Yep.
Thanks, Dick. Megan, I see you come in during the department head reports. Would you like to come forward and bring us up to speed what's going on? Community development, emergency management, whatever.
So Bob is out of town and Richard left this morning for a conference as well. So I'm just mainly here to answer questions. We don't have a detailed report. I know later this week we're going to be meeting with First District to talk about our comp plan update. I've been traveling a little bit in the past couple weeks and related to hopefully working on strengthening our agricultural sector and working on some policies to deal with some food related policies. I know, for instance, Richard is gone for a couple days to get some training on floodplain management. So maybe you'll see a little bit in the next year where we're working on our drainage issues and flooding issues. But there's no major updates besides information that you're already aware of that we're going through.
Okay.
Did you guys have any questions?
Questions for Megan?
When will you think you might hear the results of your?
The program?
Yeah.
They said mid-November. I did everything I could. I followed up with thank you cards, appreciated how they covered all of the costs for travel and lodging. It was a 4-day program that even now I'm impressed with. And I'm trying to, if you guys are interested, I'm trying to get links to any of the videos and the presentations. I was amongst people that are kind of agricultural heroes, I guess, in a lot of ways. I don't know if you're familiar with Wendell Berry and Mary Berry, the families that have done a lot for agriculture. But there's several others, some farmers and educators out of North Dakota that have done a lot of work with agriculture. So I can share a lot of that information. I gave you one page, you wanted a short summary of what I did, and I found that very hard to do in one page.
I knew it'd be hard.
But hopefully you got a chance, and if you didn't look through it, do so. I did, to cram a lot in there, I did hyperlink a lot of stuff, so you could click on names of people that were involved, get their background, familiarize yourself with some of the vocabulary. You throw around sustainable agriculture or, you know, a regional food system, and those are new words for a lot of people. And if you would want to know a little bit more about what that entails, I've also been trying to get a list of movies that, whether I show them in capacity of the county, I thought it would be good to have a movie series in our community to just kind of build a discussion around the topic. And I've come across a lot of good documentaries and movies. So I can share those with you too.
Yeah, I
But-
stopped in her office and when she got
I had
back.
3 piles.
Yeah, it looked like Bob's desk. And it was all stuff. And I said, boy, it'd be great if you came and gave some information to the commission. But as I looked, can you shorten it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Well, you've done a tremendous amount of work on it, a lot of documentation, and I hope you're successful.
Yeah, I think it's a new discussion for the state of South Dakota. Just last week, they had their 4th annual South Dakota Local Food Conference, and there was a lot of producers there trying to learn a little bit more about the topic. And I'd be happy to share in detail, but it is kind of maybe a work session discussion where you could ask a lot of questions and I could share some information for you.
I know this is, this is a huge initiative with USDA and Secretary Vilsack, and there's a lot of things going on across the country. It's kind of interesting.
And the program that I applied for was funded through USDA.
Yep.
And it must have been funded very well because
Well, it's the Secretary's initiative, so it probably
Yeah.
is. Okay. Any other questions?
Well, the only other thing, and Megan may be aware of this, Bob and I have been emailing back and forth, and he says, be sure and tell the commissioners, besides the 8 points he has here, that my travel budget is in the red, Vicky, and for having to pay 2 additional zoning meetings this month. We have a meeting on the comprehensive plan alone,
and we will probably have a future, at least, what did he say, 4 to 5 meetings in the next, moving forward maybe over the next 5 months
so
that
a
we
lot
have
of,
to plan for.
yeah, and the other one is concerning the legal matter, and will be executive session with planning and zoning
Okay.
over the
Sure.
dairy. Yeah. So just want you to know that he's in the red with planning and zoning, but going for
Well,
necessary counsel.
Bob typically runs a pretty tight ship, so I can understand where he'd be a little bit in the red on this.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Megan?
There was item number 2 under Bob's report. Says he's looking for a consensus of the board to follow up on that all hazard preparedness management course, bringing that to Brookings County. I don't know if there is I'm trying to do. There was a flyer, I think, that was included as part of his
Oh,
report.
yeah, the next page.
This page,
Yeah.
yes. And I think he's looking for consensus from you folks on bringing this course to.
To
Yeah,
Brookings
he would
County.
like to bring that course and have that presentation here in the county, and I personally didn't have any problem with that.
And I mentioned Vicky because you're in the email too. Has he already contacted you? Ms. Busette, I'm sorry.
Is
Yeah, I
that all
think-
right with the board, a general consensus that we see if we can have that conference here?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, tomorrow I'll be involved in a training exercise for emergency management. I also did attend the Red Cross meeting. They're trying to get more active in Brookings County. From what I gathered, they'd like to start meeting once a month. And the county will be hosting their January meeting in our community room. So we may be involved a little bit more with Red Cross.
Okay.
And they're also adopting the IC training. So maybe Bob will be working with them to do training, and they may want to attend a course like this.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is she still using our office at all? Not coming here at
It's
all?
changed, yeah. There's been new management with the group, and I think they're in another transition cycle. I know they're trying to get a lot of their equipment and their, what do you call it, their mobile shelter. They're trying to restock it and reorganize it because it's not equipped for what they need. So they're shipping that down to Sioux Falls, they're getting that organized, and then they're going to bring it back here. And they're just trying to recruit volunteers and digitize some of their processes and paperwork.
Mm-hmm.
And they were involved with our local incident of the missing person recently, and they helped out a lot with meals for the few days that we were working out there. So,
Okay.
Thank
Any other questions? Thank you.
okay.
Appreciate it. Board members, with the consensus of the board, I see our next 3 items are time-specific. With consensus of the board, could we move on to item number 8, the action to approve liquor license renewal for the businesses operating outside the municipalities? And if that's consensus of the board would entertain a motion.
So move.
Moved by Wyseth, second by Krogman. Discussion?
There
All right,
is
Sheriff?
one of these that has not paid their taxes yet, and that is a requirement for approving the license. So we can do one of two things: not approve it, and we'll save it for a future agenda to approve once the taxes have been paid, or approve it contingent on the taxes being paid.
Question, didn't we have this last year? This seems all like deja vu.
Yeah,
Same-
we do this every
Yeah.
year.
Same, with the same client, same license?
I don't know if it was. the
Yes.
same.
Oh, I'm not so contingently, in a contingent mood right now.
When we do a contingent though, how much time do we give them to?
These licenses expire on December 31st, so really it's in their best interest to get this done so that, because from here, we forward all of this paperwork on to Department of Revenue out in Pier. They go through it on their end, approve it on their end, and then send the licenses back to us. And then we have to distribute them by the end of the year. So there's still a process even once they're approved here. There's several, at least a couple of weeks because they're getting these in from across the state right now. So it is in the best interest for this party to get this done.
Marty, do you have any problems with any of these, the extreme nature?
No, West Oak Pub, they did fail their last sting at Oakwood, but,
And that's not the one that we're on right now.
oh, I'm sorry.
We're on the
No.
liquor licenses.
I'm fine.
Yeah, I just wondered if you had a problem with any of the license. I know one infraction is not a end of the world, but two gets pretty serious. Three is, you're off to the races.
Okay.
But the Department of Revenue takes away their license.
What would be the wishes of the individuals that made and seconded the motion that be contingent upon all taxes being, all qualifications being met by the applicants?
By,
Or do you, but it has to
A
be by
date?
December 31st or nobody gets a license?
well, there'll be a 2-week delay. They'll have to without a license if they wait till the last minute because, right? There'll be that.
Yes, I mean, you can approve this now contingent on the taxes being paid. Then as soon as they're paid, we'll send the paperwork off. If you don't want to do that, we wait to approve it at one of your upcoming meetings. It slows the process down a little bit because the meetings, they could come in this afternoon and then we could get the paperwork done.
I think
But
it should be
that's your
contingent.
decision.
What's that?
I think it should be contingent.
My only concern is if there's a continual same problem with the same person, are they taking advantage of us? Well, let's give it to them contingent, no big deal. Where now it might, if there's delays, they might think next time of paying their taxes on time so they're not delayed. And again, I'm not sure we're handing down any judgment or anything like that, but, just like you said, if you get caught on a sting once, okay, no big deal, but twice, now we're a problem. Now we're in a second year in a row of the same person not paying their taxes and wanting their alcohol license again to be renewed. I don't know.
Although, what do we get a little income off this?
Yeah,
and
they have to pay the penalty. It's their
Yeah.
problem.
Right. That's
So
what
that's why I think it should be contingent.
Is that all right with you guys? You're in control.
Since I made the motion to approve, I would say contingent, what is the date today? That they have their taxes paid by December 1st.
I'll second.
And then the paperwork can all go in together.
Does the second concur with that?
Sure.
Okay. Recorder have that? Okay. Any further discussion? Please call,
Oh,
right.
go ahead.
Please call the roll.
Krogman?
Aye.
Miller?
Aye.
Falcon? Wyseth?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Motion carries.
We still got a little time. Item number B is action to award a bid in the amount of $256 to Rust Fencing of Estline for an I-beam for the Highway Department.
If I could add a comment on that, please.
Sure.
as you'll see who, with the active bids, I just want to make it clear that the lead foreman, Chris Pressman, had nothing to do with any of the bid documents or review or anything, so.
Okay. Good.
Could I, showing my ignorance, I guess, I need an explanation. You take the, would you explain that bid to me? You take the highest?
Mhm.
Right, they
Oh,
were,
you're selling, okay, that's, all right,
yeah, we're selling.
okay. Got it, good, I'm glad you took that.
The thing is, just one I-beam?
It's quite an assortment of I-beams, but they're been there for ages, and
It's a tonnage.
yes, and it's by
You're
the
selling
ton.
it for so much time. Quite a difference in the prices.
Correct.
Someone wanted it more than others.
Well, that and some of them really had no other outlet other than scrap, and so they had to leave themselves some room for fudge, so.
Makes a difference what you're going to do with them.
I guess the question that I have, if it has scrap value, what is that scrap value, and why wouldn't we just sell it ourselves as scrap, as opposed? Are we getting more this way?
Yes, we're getting a lot more. Scrap right now, I haven't checked in the last day or so, but it's probably around 120, I suppose, for somebody that's got something, and that's why they were all right in that $100 range.
So the low bidders were the ones that were looking for scrap, and the ones that paid more for it had a use for it. Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Further discussion? Steve, I don't believe we have a motion yet, do we? Dick?
Oh, no,
Dick
no, we
entered
need a
in-
motion in a second.
Pardon?
We need a motion in
Yeah.
a second.
Oh, so moved.
Moved by Wyseth, second by Krogman. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Miller,
Aye.
Falcon, Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
We're about a minute away from our hearing time. Can we do the other two real quick? What's your clock say? 9 o'clock. Okay. At this time, we will recess briefly for the scheduled item, the public hearing upon applications for the sale of alcoholic beverages. And at this time, we would open the floor to anyone that would like to speak as a proponent. Anyone here to appear and speak as a proponent? If not, is there anyone that would like to speak as an opponent to the application? Once again, anyone wishing to speak as an opponent? Hearing none, we'll close the testimony and close the hearing and bring it back to the board in regular session. And the chair would entertain a motion on the topic of the applications for sale of alcoholic beverages. Moved by Falcon, second by Miller. Discussion. And Sheriff Stanwyck, feel free to have any comments that you would have.
I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion, questions from board members? Please call the roll.
Falcon, Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, it takes us up to our 9:05. We're just a little bit early. You guys have more people coming? If it's the pleasure of the board, we're a couple minutes early. We can move forward then. Guys, feel free to come up to the table. Got a microphone. Be sure and introduce yourselves so we got you on record. And the Sinai Fire Department is here to discuss some road concerns that they have. So, Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Washy from Sinai. I'm the fire chief in Sinai.
Scott Shady, just a fireman from Sinai.
I guess we have a concern about, we have excellent roads or whatever coming in and out of Sinai, but the road going north towards Highway 14 and the road going south towards the county line. You guys have done a wonderful job. You've built the road up, but you can't just build the road up without making shoulders. In the last year, we've had 3 rollover accidents going north out of Sinai or coming towards Sinai, either way from Highway 14. You raise the sides of the road or the height of the road, but there's no shoulders. Cars are getting off the edge, or trucks. We've had 2 trucks. They get off the edge and they overcorrect. They get back on the road. They roll over, and we've got problems. You go down to Iowa. You go into Nebraska. They have 2 to 3 feet of dirt or gravel on the edges of the road, flat with the surface of the road, so that if vehicles get off, they can come back on the road safely without overcorrecting and causing an accident. Just wondering if we can try to do something to help that out. I believe it's Highway 11.
Just 1 to the north and 11 to the south?
Okay.
I don't know my road
And
numbers,
Dick,
I'm
do you have
sorry.
some comments too? Feel free to enter into the discussion. And
Well, I think one thing with our county system, it's very difficult to produce what these gentlemen are requesting. They're right. I mean, it would be a much safer scenario. But anytime when you build the road up, and like this last one we did was 2 inches, and we put a taper to the edge, which is really called a safety edge because it's supposed to be more forgiving than a abrupt 90-degree. The right-of-ways on most of our roads have been in existence for quite a while. And when they're talking about adding a shoulder, that changes quite a bit of the profile of the road itself. So you can't, like where this last accident happened a week ago Thursday, it's fairly steep, almost a 1 to 2 slope on that west side. Well, if you added a 1 foot shoulder to that even, or 2 foot would be that much more, and then you take a 1 to 4, which would be an ideal taper for your inslope, you're out, quite a ways to the west in this case, and then you'd have to have your ditch and then your back slope. You really need a lot more right-of-way to accomplish that. I guess my suggestion would be is if there are areas that are specific, to address it mainly, like when we redo the project or something, that would be a good time to maybe obtain more right-of-way, maybe change the slope or whatever. But you're looking at an extremely significant amount of lane miles if you were going to try to address this countywide. And, it's just one of those things that's a real unfortunate. And when you put together a new project, maybe that would be something that we would want to include that would create a much safer environment. But it definitely involves more than just putting some material alongside the road and trying to create, a different taper to the ditch. Does that help or confuse? I don't know. I guess it's a really significant request to try to address all the ditching.
Right now, Dick, we're working on 34th, and we brought up safety, I don't know how many times. And that's going to be a new road. And then we have bridge inspections. Is there a standard of safety or that could be looked at, or somebody could actually come and look at our county roads, at least point out the worst places? I mean, I hate to spend money on on other commission items, especially the non-mandated, when we got roads that are not safe for our citizens and travelers coming through. And I'm just wondering if we could focus on, is there some sort of a standard of safety? And
sure.
Who would do this, and what would it cost to have it looked at? Not only this road, but any other roads that we have.
Right. I guess you would look at the standards that the South Dakota DOT puts out for secondary roads. The other thing is when you do that, there's clear zone distances, there's taper to the, the slope of the ditch and the back slope. I mean, you've been involved in 34th Avenue, you realize that you don't just build a road up and put a surface on it and call it good. We're already out to 80 feet there. I mean, I guess what I would suggest in a, probably hiring an engineering firm to do a detailed analysis of the profiles of Brookings County roads and come up with determination of what would be unacceptable or could be improved upon would be a better way to put it.
Well, if you had a dollar estimate, then you got to economize. We don't have unlimited number of resources to put to this, but we just had an idea what it would cost to do the most dangerous. I mean, we do the same thing with our bridges right now. We worry about narrow bridges and things like that, and it's about safety while somewhat also transportation of farm equipment and whatever. But I guess the road, if a road's dangerous, it's just as serious as a bridge.
Right. You've basically got a road system that's geared more towards 1930, 1935 traffic, and now it's a completely different ballgame. And that's why I say I think it would be too significant to try to approach it as a county-wide project, but I certainly think it could be incorporated into any new project that would, weigh the value of it.
So you're talking if we have a planned overlay somewhere, or are we talking of building a brand new road where we buy right of way?
That would be the clearest, would be like with 34th Avenue or Novita or whatever, where we're doing it, we're going to have the clear zone, we're going to have the right ditch, we're going to have that. There could be other things like, for example, I mentioned earlier when we talked about some of these overlay projects in the future, if we've already got sufficient mat there and it's only going to get worse by narrowing the road, it isn't going to create any different taper to the ditch, so to speak. But we would mill that road down and use the material, put it back, and then your slope would not change. Sometimes it's the narrowness, I guess, I would be more concerned about than I would. I don't want to sound cold-hearted, but I can't keep people from leaving the road or not paying attention. I just, I got the road to take care of. And
well, none of these things are dealing with the issue that these two young men are in here to talk about. And so it seems to me that what we're looking at is if we were to fix what they're talking about, is that we would have to acquire right away. It would be a major project that would be costly.
Yeah, I don't think you'd be in the hundreds of thousands of dollars if you were just going to fix that immediate short stretch of ditch that's rather steep. But where do you start and stop? I mean, that's...
I guess the question I would have is the accidents they've had out there, is it caused by distraction? Is it caused by, driving a bigger piece of equipment that's too narrow? The road's too narrow. I mean, we can't go change and fix all these roads and widen them and put the slope on because, if there's other ways to warn the traveling public, if there's the linear posts that can be put up to show that, it's a narrow road, kind of people look and say, oh, this road really is narrow when I'm driving down it. Because you can't change driver action. I mean, if a person is not paying attention, goes off the road, it doesn't make any difference what kind of slope you got. Some of them go off the road and come back up on the road. Here, they go off the road and they overcorrect and they have an accident. Well, it doesn't mean that other roads they aren't going off of. It's just that this one here, if they do, the results of it are different. And I know we can't go around the county and find every road that has a slope that's not sufficient, because you couldn't build those roads that way today. State wouldn't allow you to build a road like that. But how do you go back and fix? I mean, that's a major, major, major project. I would be more happy to, if there's a particular area that needs to be signed or linear post put up, or a railing or a cable put up in a particular area that's got a real bad slope. But I don't know if all these accidents have been in one spot, or just the whole length of the road, or
They've been within 3 miles of each other.
within 3 miles.
Yeah. The first one involved a semi, the second one involved a car, and the third one involved a utility truck.
Yeah.
I know it's a big undertaking to do this. I drive a sprayer for the Sinai elevator, and I tell you what, going north and south out of Sinai, it is scary to drive down the roads. That thing is 13 feet wide, and there is no shoulders. If you get off, you're going to go for a ride. It just so happens them same two roads are ones that have been added to height-wise. I live west of town. I have more shoulder, more dirt along the edge of the road. You can slide over. You can put your tires on the dirt on the edge of that road, and you're comfortable. Going east of town, you can as well. It's just where you can't pile asphalt on top of asphalt without doing something to the shoulder.
Yep.
You know, I understand it's a very big financial situation to fix this, but somewhere along the line, you know, I agree 100% with you. These roads were made back in the days when there wasn't near the machinery size. I measured a guy's combine yesterday. It's 20 feet wide. Well, that combine has the right to be on that road as well, but if you meet that combine, somebody's got to go somewhere, and you can't slide over. You can't move. You know, machinery, grain carts, tractors, four-wheel drive tractors, they're constantly going up and down these roads, and there's no place to go. You know, I'd just like to see something happen.
How many miles would we be talking about to run it? You know, if you're going north out of Sinai.
It's about 5.5 miles north of
5.5.
14, and the one going south to the county line, I believe, is 3.5.
No, I agree totally. I mean, a lot of our county highways, roads there just don't have any shoulder.
Right.
And
There is no shoulder there. I mean,
there isn't, and that's the problem. Is that's the way they've been built. And we
the
can't-
first rollover of the semi that took place by Highway 14, as we were there at the scene or whatever, one of Marty's deputies, and I'm terrible with names or whatever, went to step back up on the road. He actually tripped on the road because there was a lip there that was enough where he tripped with his feet. Well, put your wheels over it. That's a hard pull to come back, and it's very unsafe.
Yeah.
Well, I would suggest that we really monitor this and try to, Dick, have you, visit with the fire department, talk about maybe temporary things that can be done. I mean, even if we chose to do something, it would be
It's time,
so many
it's
years
a time
out.
process. Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I think we need to
Yeah.
continue to look at if there's things that can be done, if there's problem areas, just not just say, okay, we got a problem, and just not worry about it anymore. I think between the sheriff's office, if they have issues out there, and in the highway, and you guys, that we just need to all continue to talk.
And Commissioner Falcon, to your response as far as putting cables up, these farm machinery and stuff going up and down the roads, you can't really do that because they're just going to tear it out. They don't fit.
Yeah, that's true too.
They don't fit.
Put in our safety posts. They're going to have to go around every one of those. As they, I mean,
I'm
it's not a
sad to say,
simple-
but I'm guessing I know what's going to happen to a lot of them safety signs because
Yeah.
the farmers think they own the roads.
Yes, Marty.
And if I understood Dick on his department head report, he did say that he was going to take a look at, right, Dick? Take a look at that area, because I'm concerned about that area too, because for some reason that area has been really hit with accidents. From deer accidents also, that they didn't roll, but it just seems like that area has been busy for some reason. We've had 2 DWIs in that area too, and along with the rollovers and stuff. So, and I guess I agree with the commission, when we have an area that looks like it's a problem area, we got to address that and then move on to the next area. hopefully we can be proactive, but sometimes we're more reactive on some of this stuff.
The following morning, when I had heard about the accident and went up to look things over, because I always like to go out and see if there was anything that was definitely a serious problem. And the troopers were there taking measurements and whatever for the thing. And I said, introduced myself and just said, I'm here to see if there was anything that looked, out of the ordinary or something that really was different. And both of them said, well, I don't know what you mean. It looks like any other part of the road. And I said, well, that's what I wanted to know. I didn't know if someone had, it hit a rut or a hole or a void or something. You just never know. It could be a culvert that separates and leave a big hole. We always like to check everything out and make sure that it's not perfect, but it's probably under our watch anyway. And so I guess in this case, like Marty says, there's probably room for improvement, but yet, we'll have to just address it as we can.
I guess when I spoke of inspecting the roads was that we wouldn't have the resources to do it all, but I'm with Dennis that we might have certain spots in the county, and I can't believe this isn't somebody else hasn't confronted this. I mean, we got the same roads all over the state, neighboring states. They were all built. We were all, Minnesota and Iowa and South Dakotas were developed about the same time. There might be some fixes out there or warnings or some way to take a look at it without expanding the right of way. And maybe in certain places we got to bite the bullet too.
Right. It's, I guess, another example on the other end of the spectrum. If you look at our interstate highway system, it's probably the most over-designed road system in the world. And there's still people leave the road. There's still people that get killed. There's still people that, it's just phenomenal that, if you talk about the road system, I can see where we can improve, but I can see also where there's other instances where it's designed almost flawlessly and it still is a problem.
Well, you can't stop every accident, but in this case, what they're talking about is a grabber, a tire grabber. And, okay, Donnie Larson says I talk too much. And, okay, I'm talking a lot when I'm driving. And once in a while, I'll hit those little bumpy things. Oh, hey, I better pay attention a little bit. I need to move over. And so there are other ways of getting your attention to pay more attention. And so just to say, well, that's the way it is, I don't know. After I talked to Scott on the phone the other day, I paid a little more attention. I drive that road quite a bit. And, boy, you get your tire in there, you're gone. And I have used shoulders before to get back to where I belong, either by warning or paying somebody saying, hey, where you going, sorry, Marty, I am a distracted driver. I do talk too much.
I think, I agree with everything the fire department and everyone is saying. They become a hazard. The fixes are going to be expensive, and then we've got all the other federal rules and regulations that we have to comply with, and we got utilities in our right-of-ways and everything to expand them, but that's probably the long-term resolve. But partially to answer your question about other counties is we're fortunate in Brookings County that we've got an aggressive road system, and we do the overlays, and therefore it creates a problem for us that a lot of other counties don't have because they can't afford the overlay. In fact, they probably ground them up and went back to gravel.
Yep.
And our next project on this one would probably be to, like you mentioned, Dick, is it wouldn't be another overlay. It'd be ground up, recycled, and then start all over. I mean, but in the meantime, yeah, we got to figure out something to address at least the serious areas.
Well, and I know that I've driven roads in other parts of the area where I've seen signs that say next 4.5 miles, narrow shoulders or no shoulders or something like that, just to warn the driving public. I know I've seen those before, and maybe just any little thing that can help us warn, it was better than not doing anything. And that's where I'm thinking you guys all talk together and think about things that can be done.
If there's that big of a drop off from the asphalt to the shoulder, is there something short term that can be done with to help that, at least in that 3-mile section to start with?
Well, that's kind of what I'm trying to make the point of. If it was, let's say you had an existing shoulder that was there and it had settled or it had created a sharp edge, then putting more gravel there, you still keep relatively the same profile of the road. Your hinge point to your inslope doesn't change. Where these roads were built, they dug out the ditches and put them up and called it a road. If I went and, let's say, metered out gravel, or we did it a couple places in the county recently where we had some material that was waste material from a culvert or whatever. We put it on the road, we bladed off to the side. What you start to see is just a elongation of your danger area. I mean,
Your ditch gets
without
steeper.
doing that taper with a hinge and a slope, you're just, yes, you'll give that immediate leaving the road a much favorable result as far as coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But if anybody left the road, you're really looking at a problem then, because once you get past that point where you've leveled it out, in this case especially, you would have this level for 3 or 4 feet, and then it's going to drop because it's already at. So if somebody really leaves the road, they're going to be in the same predicament.
Yeah. But Dick, I mean, I guess my question is here, this seems to be an excessive drop off, that if you drop off, your tires go and it pulls you, and it's hard to overcorrect. And so I guess I would err on, let's add that little extra there so it's not a tire grabber, and it will be to the detriment because it will be steeper, and and it might be a worse crash if they go all the way off. I'm not saying that's good or anything, but it's one of the lesser of two evils probably for a short amount of time, that it may stop a couple crashes or turnovers. It may not stop them all, but it may limit them. And I would err towards adding a little bit more onto that to make it so when a tire goes off, it doesn't grab you and pull you and boom, you're gone. You can at least correct a little bit and maybe save a couple there. So I understand where you're coming from, but I would err on extending it a little bit, even though you're going to make it deeper, to the detriment, make it deeper, until we have a chance to redo the road. Because the way it just looks and the way all of our county highways are designed is there's not a lot of shoulder on any of them. And we're okay with that, except when it gets too high and it starts pulling vehicles into the road, into the ditch. And I think that's where these guys are here saying, hey, this is getting too far. I mean, they're grabbing tires and it's pulling in. And that's just my opinion on it there. I'd like to see maybe some changes on that to try to minimize the grabbing of the tires and pulling in, because I think that's where we're at here on it too. I mean, we can't redesign this road and spend, $3 million, $4 million and just redo this off this. But I think a short-term fix, even though it does cause a detriment of too steep of a ditch, might be the way to go.
That's where I was going, but Commissioner Krogman said it much more eloquently.
Yeah. Well, I was just, and I agree with Commissioner Krogman. I started thinking, you're right, Dick. That's a dangerous situation, but I hate to put human life in a statistical thing. What is going to, statistically, what's going to cause more loss of life? A drop off on a road, or a drop off, you got a little shoulder to come back and then hit the ditch. I mean, both would be tragic, but which is going to happen more often? And just see the pants, to me, would be that getting grabbed and pulled over is going to happen more than, because most people,
Right.
and this is just unscientific,
Yeah.
are going to re-correct once they're on a shoulder.
I agree. I just didn't want to take it on my own to come up with Dick Burke's special formula for fixing, accidents. And it sometimes doesn't look that way. They kind of hang you out to dry. They say, well, you should
Well,
have known better than to do this.
This is the lesser of two evils, we
Y-
think.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know it's not anything major, Dick, but I work at the Sinai elevator. We do have a clay pile out behind the elevator that you're more than willing to take to help fix our road. You can talk to the boss at the elevator, Greg Bolstead. I talked to him yesterday and again this morning. He is more than willing to donate that for trying to help this out. So,
But
But I guess I look at the other side of it. If you're adding additional shoulder there, but it's a much steeper drop off. If you go off that one, you're really in trouble. There's no coming back. And liability wise, are we setting ourselves up to saying, we're gonna put these guys in or whoever goes off this thing they're gone. There's no way to come back on the road. So you got to kind of look at both sides of it too. I think you got to be a little bit careful. We know we're adding a shoulder that if we add to this shoulder and we put extend it out 2 feet, 3 feet, and all of a sudden we got twice the drop off that we had before. We're adding to the we got to be a little bit careful not to get too carried away and just say, let's put this extra shoulder on, and now all of a sudden they have an accident and somebody comes back and says, well, if I'd have been able to drop off this other one, I probably could have got back, but you built this out so far that I couldn't control my vehicle after it went off the road. So I think you got to be a little bit careful how you do that.
Well, can we do a CYA with signage?
Oh, what? Stephanie, I missed it. What?
Cover yourself.
Well, I'm just thinking, Abby's in a trial today, and I think we should run, but I agree, Stephanie, it's a lesser of two evils. But as a government function, your job is sometimes
Gotta look at all of it.
to pick the least damaging, and maybe there is Marty, I don't know, someplace, a scientific study. What's more better, nice slope or a nice shoulder? Gut feeling is the shoulder. I'll take the shoulder anytime because that's the way I drive, but maybe on
these accidents, the accidents, yeah, they left the roadway and rolled. Those are hard sometimes to prevent those, but as the fire chief was talking about, the cases where you got to move over, you meet a semi or you meet a combine, and then all of a sudden you move over and then drop off, as Commissioner Krogman was talking, and then you try to come back up and it catches you. Yeah, the accidents are sometimes hard to prevent once they leave the roadway and roll. We got rollovers all the way, on the interstate and stuff. But it's just meeting traffic, and you pull. It seems like every time, especially in the wintertime when you're ice covered, you don't know where the center line is, so you always have a tendency to move over a little bit more to the right, and then if there's a drop off. But I think some signage would help too. Just help.
I think we all agree that we recognize the problem. We all agree that we want to figure out how to fix it. And probably if local fire department and Dick and Marty and Abby all kind of get their head together and come up with a plan, if nothing else, take a section of it and try it and see how it works. And if that experiment works, why move on and do some more of it. And I can understand, and I think you understand where we're coming from with the liability, and we don't want to create a false sense of security for people, and they end up in worse shape than we are now. But yeah, it is a problem, and I think we all agree that we got to figure out a way to resolve it to the best of our ability until such time that the road is completely redone. And at that point, I think whoever's sitting at this table seriously needs to look at expanding the right-of-way so that we can have a good, safe road system out there.
I just want to concur that I want some action, I guess, at least a good, solid discussion, Dick, with Abby and with the people in the Sinai Fire Department, and that we try to find the best resolution, and rather than, I just don't want to monitor it, give something a whirl here, some kind of action.
Okay? Anything else from the board? Ryan?
Well, I still, I know those posts on the right side will get taken out, but I still think those do accomplish something there too. And if the farmers' combines have to wait and go around them, they can give that up, for some safety, I think. Those deeper areas, I'd still like to see those, if we extend it out a little bit and put one of those signs in there. I know when we had to do the detour on South Main here, one of the trucks went in the ditch, tipped over all the way on its back because it wasn't there, and they put those posts in. And having driven that every day, it really made a difference of how far I was moving over to people moving over, and it slowed everybody down when we got close to those areas, and it's because those posts were put in. Before that, people were going through there because they didn't realize how deep the ditch really was. And so even though they could be taken out, I'd still like to see some of those in those deeper areas, those posts along the side there, just so people can maybe get used to it, and that they have to slow down when they get to that area when they're passing and that kind of stuff. So
I like that idea, and I'm not a road engineer, and that's why I'm looking for you guys to figure this out. But maybe if the shoulder was a little wider, the post wouldn't get hit. Mm.
The other thing, to just food for thought, but the contractor is just about done installing all the signs for our upgrade to our road system. So every sign you see, and there's many additional ones and maybe some less in areas, that's the reason for that. It was all engineered, and that's where the signs are supposed to be. So it'll be a learning curve there too, because certain people are going to find out they may not be able to hay the ditch like they used to, and sometimes the signs are going to be a problem. So I guess as part of this research, I'd like to make sure that we are improving instead of deterring.
Right.
So
I also like how the new signs they put up are a little bit farther from the road. It should make it easier for your snowplows to not plow them over as well. I think that's a great improvement. I like that.
Okay. Well, guys, appreciate you coming in and visiting with us and pointing out the issue, and I think we're all on the same page. We want to resolve it to the best of our abilities, and so if you create a line of communication with Highway Department and law enforcement and with our state's attorney to make sure that none of us are getting in legal trouble by what we're trying to accomplish here, and let's see if we can't get something done. Okay?
Thank you.
You bet.
Thanks
Thanks,
for being
fellas.
volunteer firemen.
Appreciate all the things that the volunteers do. Okay, we're 5 minutes late here, but our next appointment is Mr. Scott Moore from Banner, and he's got some 34th Avenue updates for us. Good morning, Scott.
Morning. How's everybody doing on this lovely day?
Warmer than we have been.
Well, just to bring you up to speed, the railroad application permit got mailed out, so that's off to the railroad to worry about that. Thursday, we're having the utility meeting in our office, so I've had Sioux Valley calling me, BMU has called me, Everest has called, so we should have a good turnout for that. And what's really bringing me to the forefront here is picking a bid advertising and bid opening date. Back in, was it June or July, when we suggested we should do this in January? What I'm finding out in January is like January 8th and 9th, and I apologize for not having a calendar for everybody to look at. Can we?
I think all of these dates were in the communication, were they not? So we're aware of what you're going to say.
Okay. So the 8th and 9th is the DAPA conference out in Deadwood. That's where DAPA is the Dakota Asphalt Paving Association. So all of our asphalt suppliers are going to be out 8th and the 9th for sure. Whether they make it an extended week or not, I don't know. Then Bose told me that they will be receiving award at the national annual meeting, which is the 24th through the 28th down in Florida, of all places, in January. So I started looking at a good time to advertise and a good time to have a bid opening. And with the state bid law, you're required to have advertise twice and at a minimum of 10 days. So I was looking at, my actual preference would be advertising January 21st, and then that would give us 3 weeks of advertising, and that'll get us past the national conference in case other asphalt suppliers besides Bose in this area are going to that, and having a bid opening on February 11th. Now, if we don't want to wait that long, we can do, to get the required advertising time, we could advertise January 5th and then have a bid opening, say, on January 21st or 22nd. The downside to having that bid opening, the 21st or 22nd, is just either I'm going to Florida for an extra week because I'm going to be there, or I'm going to stay an extra week afterwards. And Monday the 19th is a holiday, so the 20th doesn't make a very good day for having a bid opening right after a holiday, so it would be the 21st or the 22nd if we started advertising on the 5th.
Scott, I appreciate the email you sent Ryan and I and keeping us informed, and then we asked you to come and taking time to explain this to the commission. But can you explain something about Dick? Maybe you can chime in. But I had a business. I went on vacation all the time. I never closed. I had people running my business. I guess, don't these people, is there something different about this business that they don't go out and bid projects when they're on vacation?
They bid projects, but wintertime is also their playtime. They put in.
Damn, but don't they have other people that show up with their bid? They have it all figured out, and I mean, I don't understand. I guess that.
Well, and I'm thinking by starting on the advertising on the 21st and giving them 3 weeks to look at this, you'll get better bids. I think by doing an earlier bid and advertising, we're going to be, well, I'm getting ready to go to Florida. I'm just writing this number down, and so be it. Yeah,
I had a conversation with Jason Bose, and he told me point blank that as long as they had the stuff before the 20th, they were good to go.
They were good to go?
My
Oh.
suggestion then is, if we need to advertise it twice, start the 29th of December and January 5th, and open the bids on January 15th, just like we planned.
Okay. I was just trying to, Jason Bose, and they're close. They should be very competitive. 2.5 miles of asphalt is going to bring a lot of potential bidders into this. And with the DAPA conference and then the national conference at the beginning and the end of the month, I was just thinking it would be better to give them plenty of time to look at it and not be worrying about when they're going on vacation. That was my only thinking.
Scott, my question is this, and I'm not on the subcommittee, of course, so I'm asking a question maybe inappropriately, but how far are you from having the bid ready?
Once we get through our meeting on Thursday to see if there's any changes that the utilities are going to want me to incorporate into the plans, to be able to have a renewed cost estimate, I should be able to get that done in mid-December. Because right now I have a discussion with the geotechnical guys on our street section. So until him and I agree with what we should do out there, it's going to be hard to put a cost estimate based on quantities, because his thinking and mine are just a little bit different. We're working through that right now. So,
Okay. Well, the reason for my question is, through this long process, and if your meeting Thursday went extremely well, favorable, you could basically have that bid ready and we could start advertising early December.
early mid-December at the earliest. I think if we stick with our December 29th, that'll give everybody plenty of time.
Right? I mean, I'm sorry. I just think this thing has gone on an awful long time, and I would think that if I was sitting in your chair, I think I've got a lot of stuff prepared. I just need to put the final details in that Thursday meeting. If that all went well, I can just pull my numbers together, and I could burn a little midnight oil, and I could have that bid ready, and we could be bidding in late December, early January.
Well, and there's nothing wrong with that thought. You know, we can have our start advertising on the 28th, 29th, have our bid opening on the 15th, and the reality is we still won't be constructing till May or June. So
I understand that, Scott, and I'm not being argumentative. I'm just being a layman here. But having done projects myself, we want the advantage of the early bidding before a lot of other bids are out there, and these guys all of a sudden have got a lot of work piled up, and so they don't need to be very aggressive on ours. That's my thought. I may be wrong.
And
but that's my
that's
thought.
a good point. That's a good point. So.
And I think that's my thought too, is I'd like to be one of the first ones out there so they can be aggressive on our bid to make sure they know they have the stuff, and the other ones that come in January and February, they can bid the way they want those, knowing that they've got our bid.
Okay.
Is my thought. I think that the competitive parts, and again, it's not like I go through this every day, but my thought process is they're going to start filling their plate with and the fuller it gets, the less they're going to be more aggressive on their bids. But those first ones, to make sure they're busy for the year, they're going to be aggressive on to make sure they have them. And so I would say sooner the better would be my first
Okay.
on it.
I guess in our bids, it's a 2015 project, but is there going to be, you must start by this date, you must finish by this date in the bids?
Usually in the bids, you'll have a substantial completion and a final completion, not so much a starting time, because the weather depicts road projects so much.
But, I mean, that's, to me, the important part, as Don was saying, is that the earlier we get the bids packets out there, and someone bids and knows they've got that project, they know that they got to set aside that time to get that project in. So I think if you wait and all of a sudden somebody else throws one out there, they bid that in early January, and they get that, we don't bid ours till February, now we're behind them. And I think that's the important part of this is if we're ready to go, there's no reason to wait.
Okay.
And just because conferences and stuff like that, if they want the bid, they're going to bid it. They're going to be aggressive and go out there and bid it. So I agree with the end of December and bid it in January.
Okay.
Yeah, and you know, the only thing I have is my word, and I assured those people and looked right at you guys and said, January 15th is the end gate. So this way we can keep on schedule. And I think this will work for us.
Okay, we can do that. I just wanted to have this discussion and throw out the possibilities out there, so.
We're talking the 29th.
And the 5th. To advertise.
The bid opening on the 5th?
No, the bid opening on the 15th.
Yeah, so with
I just look at my calendar. Thank you.
Well, I think you understand our urgency in wanting to get this in front of the contractors as soon as possible. And if everything fell into place and those dates got moved closer, that'd be great too.
Okay.
So, okay. Any other questions for Scott?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good luck on Thursday.
Keep warm.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you. Okay, moving on to, let's see, we've done a little reversal here. We have item C, which is the action to approve a letter of understanding with the Teamsters Local 120 for the Highway Department. I think everybody's got all our information in the packet.
Yeah.
C and D letter. D went up?
Yeah.
Okay, let's do D. Yes, you're correct, folks. Action item number D is to approve Resolution 14, and this is 50, resolution approving plat of Tract 3 of Lucy's Addition, about 16.1 acres in northwest quarter of 12-111-51, and here in Brookings County. Chair would entertain a motion.
So moved. Second.
Well, that was a tie. I'll give the motion to Miller and the second to Wyseth.
No problem.
Discussion.
It was no problem.
It is no problem. Okay.
Pass.
Hearing any questions from any of the board members? Okay. Please call the roll.
Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Falcon, Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Okay, now we have our, we'll go to C, which is the action to approve the letter of understanding with the Teamsters Local 120. We've got that in our packet. Chair would entertain a motion. Moved by Krogman, second by Falcon. And any discussion? I think we're pretty well understand what we're doing.
This is in response to the governor declaring the day after Christmas as the administrative leave day for state employees. It's written into our county employee policy handbook along with the union contracts that it would be December 24th, Christmas Eve day. However, because Christmas falls on a Thursday, the governor opted to give the Friday off to give everyone a 4-day weekend. So we just have to get this change for the 26th. Instead of the 24th, we will be open from 8 to 5 on December 24th. Just get that change made with both unions, with the highway and the sheriff's unions. And then we also, coming up to in a little bit, there's making the change in the county policy handbook too.
Right.
And that's
Question?
temporary change, right? This is for
One-time change. Yes.
And then I think we should look in the future when we do Teamsters negotiations to maybe put an or in there to say or the day the governor. Then you don't have to go through all
Right.
this hassle.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Please call the roll.
Krogman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Falcon, Wyseth,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item number E is the similar letter with Local 120, and this is in regards to our Sheriff's Department. Moved by Falcon, second by Krogman. Discussion. Hearing none, please call the roll.
Miller,
Aye.
Falcon, Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item number F is the action to approve the one-time change to the employee handbook, allowing for the administrative leave on December 26th rather than December 24th. Moved by Miller, second by Krogman. Discussion. Please call the roll.
Falcon, Wyseth,
Aye.
Krogman,
Aye.
Miller,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
motion carries.
Item number 9 is the Commission Department Director's Report. And Stacy, you have your option again. You can stay seated where you're at, or you can come down to the chair, whichever you would prefer.
I'm going to stay here.
Okay.
I just got my staff report into the packet yesterday, I believe, maybe. I don't know if you've ever had a chance, if you got that email from Michelle,
Well,
it
I've
had
got-
said it on there. Scott from Banner was just in. We cut the $3,000 check for those railroad application fees, and that application was submitted. I think the application was part of my report as well, a copy of that application. Laura and I attended the Safety and Loss Conference in Pierre last week. That was an excellent, excellent conference that we went to. Some great speakers. A couple things on information security. I think look at future agendas for that conference and look at maybe sending some IT staff to that. It was a great conference. Sonia Max talked to me about in their budget for 2015, there is a second part-time 4-H program assistant position. It would be another part-time county position that was in their budget that was approved for next year. She just wanted to let you know that they're going to start that process now so that they have someone in place by January 1st, along with Laura's assistance, of course, in getting that position filled. Michelle and I are working on the various appointments. She has come up with a great spreadsheet that shows how many appointments and on what years and what months that these appointments need to be made. I'll look for some direction from you folks. We're trying to come up with all of the current names of all of our volunteer board members. So if you, on the boards that you sit on, that you know there are county appointed volunteer members to some of these boards, if you'd like to just give me a list of those names, just to make sure we have what's most current. And we'll get that started. I think in December, the only thing in December that will need to be approved before the end of the year is a couple of zoning board appointments, I believe. The rest all are in January. Commissioner Wyseth had asked me to look up some codified laws, and I included those in my packet or in my staff report for you. We discussed updating our exit interview policy. I think the policy's always been in the past that exit interviews would be done by HR, because Laura is in that position now and she doesn't have anyone directly underneath her. I don't know that there's really a change that we need to make to that policy. She will conduct exit interviews. She doesn't have anyone that directly reports to her. If at some point down the road there ever is, we'll deal with that at that time. But unless you folks have some different ideas on that, Laura is going to conduct all exit interviews for employees.
I think that's just fine. When I read it, the only thing is after they are done, who sees them? And that'd probably be us. I think that'd be appropriate for the commissioners to see them. That's my thought.
Okay, I can we'll make sure that gets added to that. Everyone?
Well, I always had that 2-tier in my mind, but tier 1 is summer help, and tier 2 is Stacy.
Full-time regular employees.
Somewhere in between there, but
right.
I think,
A couple other things. I attended the meeting yesterday along with the city manager Jeff Weldon and Greg Miller from the city, and then they had a couple of engineers, some people who are involved with this building as far as our HVAC system is concerned. Had a meeting yesterday. I can provide you more information with that. I think right now we're going to try to disseminate that information out to the Joint Powers Board folks first. But there were some recommendations made by an engineering firm looking at our situation. We went through each bullet point and decided how to proceed with all of those recommendations, including some other things. So I'll have some more information on that for the Joint Powers Board members specifically, but if I can sure share that with you as well. Optimist Breakfast as part of Youth and Government Day is December 2nd. I know they're looking for a head count on who is going to be attending the breakfast that morning. Do you know? At the Starlight, and I believe it starts at 7 o'clock. And it should be done, it's usually done by about 7:30.
Mm-hmm.
Out of town for that meeting. I will be in Texas. So
Okay.
I will not be there for the December 2nd meeting.
The rest of you,
yes.
you're going? No? Don, are you going to go to the
I'm
breakfast?
going to try and go.
Okay. I think that's all we have. Just some other dates. We're going to go out and tour the highway department grounds after the work session. Just a reminder. Hope you all wore your long underwear and caps and mittens. What? I brought my boots and my hat because I want to go too.
Two.
The offices will be closed next week, Thursday and Friday, for the Thanksgiving holiday, Youth and Government Day. And again, just to kind of keep you, just another reminder, December 18th, it's a Thursday, Leadership Brookings Day. And as it gets closer, I'll get some more information out for you. Leadership Brookings Day? Okay. Unless you have any questions for me, that's all I have.
Any questions for Stacy? Not? We'll move on to our Deputy State's Attorney report, which Abby is busy today and not with us. We'll move on to Commissioner reports. Discussion items, and we'll start with Commissioner Falcon.
On the 10th I attended Jason's kind of last day event, and we had a little coffee and cake and wished him well, and he's on to the city, and we'll certainly miss him, as we talked about at our last meeting. On the 12th, I traveled to Sioux Falls to attend the Law Enforcement Standards and Training Commission meeting. I had a very good meeting there, had one hearing that we had to go through, and some other grant business and things like that, but everything's going well at the state level at the standards training. And on the 13th and 14th, I traveled to Pierre for the Work Comp Board of Directors meeting, and again, same thing, the Work Comp is doing well. We're financially sound. Our rates are very stable. No rate increases this year, so it's going well too, and those are the meetings I had.
Okay, thanks, Denny. Any questions for Denny? Commissioner Miller.
On November 10th, I too attended Jason's little going away party and wished him well. We will definitely miss him. On November 14th, Sheriff Stanwyck and I met with Jackie Lanning, Mike Struck, and Chief Jeff Miller regarding the permanent four-way stop on South Main and 32nd. All were in agreement that we should keep the four-way stop. It meets the visibility criteria, so resolutions can be drafted for both the council and for the commission to go ahead, and I think that will happen at both of our next meetings. On November 17th, I attended the 8-county meeting in DeSmet. None of the speakers showed, I'm assuming because of weather, I don't know. But we had a good roundtable discussion with all the commissioners, and actually I thought it was far more beneficial to us than listening to some of the speakers that we've had recently. And we discussed jail facilities and confinement feeding operations and drainage, you know, all the things that we're dealing with, and how, you know, other counties, we tossed around ideas how to deal with this stuff and how other counties are dealing with it in our 8-county jurisdictions. So it was very interesting, and I think that we're going to continue to do that about every third meeting or so, the way it sounded. So it was very good, and that's all I have.
A lot can be gained from networking. Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any questions?
Was there a meeting set up on this four-way stop thing, or is it just something you guys got together? Did I miss? Okay, I just didn't know our board would appoint you to go and speak on behalf of the commissioner. You just went as a concerned citizen or commissioner, or because you live out there, right?
Yeah. I was contacted by Jackie. They just wanted to have an in-office meeting to discuss what law enforcement felt at that intersection. And now, and I invited Commissioner Miller to attend.
Well, Stacy couldn't go.
No, and that's no problem. I just didn't know what.
And so now we'll bring it to both
to the board,
council and commission for recommendation.
I do have to admit, I knew it was out there, and yet that sucker's hard to see. I mean, I was driving the speed limit, and I come paddling along, and pretty soon I seen a little teeny sign that said stop, and then boom, there was that stop sign.
Well,
It takes some getting used to.
Some of the conversations, we live out in River Ridge, obviously there, and our residents had spoke up and sent some stuff to Marty. And one of the things were that seeing that and getting used to it. And one of the recommendations that I think will be potentially adding a flashing light, temporary one for the time being, and then a permanent flashing light on to the stop sign itself, to where people can see that further away, or it brings their attention to it. Because talking with Sheriff on that too, one of the main concerns with it is people running it. That could cause a problem. But I think being able to bring the attention to it a little further away people, as people get used to it and understand it, that I think that will make a big difference.
And the other thing that was discussed and probably will happen is to reduce the speed limit to 35 all the way to that intersection.
And we've been monitoring, my office has been sitting there and watching that too. And just for instance, on December 2nd, from 4:30 in the afternoon to 5, just in a half-hour span, and he was tucked in the trees to observe. 186 cars went through that intersection in a half-hour span. And, of course, at that particular time, everybody stopped. But we still are concerned of the ones that don't. But, I think the lights and those types of things will happen, will help. And the city police, we talked about jurisdiction on, the city's taken jurisdiction on the north, of course, and I'm on the south. So the city police is going to be responsible for the accidents and the things like that on the north side of that, and then I'm responsible for the south side. But we're going to work together. He's been using his men to watch that, and my guys have been watching it too. So we're gonna work together on that stretch to try to make it as safe as we can for motorists.
Yeah, and the only thing, the last conversation we had was you were going to look at type of accidents, how many accidents you've had there, and justification, and not just throw a stop sign up because people think it's a good idea. And I don't have a problem if the request comes based upon facts and concerns and it's done right. Just don't throw up a stop sign and someone go through it and have a fatal accident and we say, oh, God, anything can happen. But I wanted just to make sure we had more information because we've had requests come before for signage and basically turned them down because there wasn't justification. And we've had requests come for signage and we've approved them because we had the facts that warranted it. So that was my only concern.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem going to meeting. It's just if it was a fact finding, if it was a
And
meeting
that's what we talked about. We're basing that locations where a road user, after stopping, cannot see conflicting traffic, and is not able to negotiate the intersection unless conflicting traffic is also required to stop. So at those intersections, you have to move up to make sure that, there isn't conflicting traffic on that. So we're going by that criteria. Again, we've talked about it to make sure that law enforcement's on the same level before we present
Right.
to the council and to the commission. It's still your decision and the council's decision if that four-way remains there.
Okay, I'm going to use a bit of executive privilege here because we have a citizen, I think, wanted to ask a question regarding the topic.
You have to come up to the front.
Doc, would you come up and sit down so we got you on?
The stop sign's probably a good idea, but there's no signage there. People, I watched people just drive right through it. After they opened up the new road, I almost drove through it myself.
So did I.
We aren't expecting a stop sign there now because it was supposed to be a temporary deal. And I called the city engineer's office and I told Jackie, I said, the stop signs, or I didn't talk to Jackie actually, but I talked to someone in the office. I said, you need to go out there and you need to paint stop ahead on the road if you're going to have a stop sign there, because people are just blowing through it. And, their answer was their deputy is now watching it. So, are we just trying to get money out of the deal, or are we trying to prevent accidents?
Yeah.
Because, people don't know it's a stop sign and they blow through it. You're going to kill somebody there. It's too bad it always has to happen that way before we finally realize it needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Well, I think some of those issues, to mitigate the fact that people don't see that, will be done. Lighting, whatever it takes to make sure that they know that there's a stop sign.
Well, you should do something now, rather than
Yeah,
wait.
the lights are what's being talked about.
Yep, I think what you and I are both suggesting here is we got to have notification that there's through signage that there's a stop sign coming up. And I think what Ryan suggested, they're going to have flashing light on it and so forth to that help.
But the sooner the better, because the
Should've done
signs
that
are there.
right- Should've done that
Signs
right
are
away.
there. And
Yeah.
I knew they were there. I knew I was coming down the road and it was in the evening and it was just dark and I knew it's here somewhere. And I don't know, it's a little teeny,
Coming
to
from
me
the south,
anyway, a very
everybody got-
small stop
everybody
ahead
got used
sign.
to it coming
So,
from the south, but once the road was open again, no
Yeah.
one expected that stop sign to be there going, heading south, you know?
We have a stop sign there right now. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Well, I think Doc hit the nail on the head here. We need to do something right now. You know, whether we do a fancy one later with, you know, the lit up ones that you
But
guys
you need to
talked
warn
about.
them that there's a stop
But
sign.
right
coming.
now, we need to have a bigger sign and
Stop
maybe
ahead.
one of those battery, whatever those things you see stuck on the top of the
Flashing
yellow
yellow light
flashing
on it or
things.
something.
I think we need to do something right now. I mean, we can take action next week on our next meeting at a permanent basis, but what do we do in the meantime if somebody zings through there? Especially if
Ryan,
it's
you
been
know what
brought
I'm
to our
talking about?
attention.
I mean, I came from the
definitely. I mean,
south.
I don't, I just, can we do that? I mean, do we have to get approval to have it there, or
On
what?
the north side, it's gonna be the cities.
Right, I mean,
From the
Marty,
south,
let me
it's
ask you this, Marty, is there a chance to talk to Chief Miller and say, you know, it was kind of the board's wishes here to try to do something immediately because of that concern? Is that something we can do and add a light there immediately? At least something like that, temporary, until we get a bigger sign and a more permanent?
I would think so, yeah.
Okay, let's work on that. See if we can't get something. And
Either take it or take it down until we make permanent action. I mean,
no,
Yeah,
right,
no,
n-
no.
right
We
now
don't
we
wanna
have
confuse-
we have a
We don't wanna
dangerous
confuse the
situation.
public any worse than it is.
No.
Well, I
But
just-
I'm like
We're
you.
starting to get used to it now.
Yeah, you
know,
don't wanna take
yeah.
it down
I
now.
think most
But
But
there's
I'm like
still
you,
people,
Doc.
you
I
know.
knew it was there somewhere, but boom, all of a
Well, I
sudden
mean,
there it was.
I mean, I know everybody lives out that direction, and, you know, I watch them drive right through, because we're not expecting stop signs.
Yeah.
A lot of people
Okay.
leave that way out of town just once in a great while, though.
Yeah.
And then
Okay. All right.
And-
Thanks.
And then, the one more thing quick while I'm here. Now that you guys are gonna be gone, and you kind of spearheaded this drainage effort south of town, how are we gonna make sure the ball doesn't get dropped on that? And that's my only question.
Doc, your project is on the work session. Donnie was and Bob Hill were our point people, and it's not being removed from our work session topic, and we'll just have to assign another commissioner and proceed. And I guess Donnie, we're going to talk about work session. I don't know what stage we're at in it. He'll give his report, but it's not going away.
Well, it's, you know, that's.
And Doc, were you a part of a group that was going to have a further
And
discussion?
that initial meeting back in maybe
Yeah.
August it was?
September, I don't know,
Yeah,
whatever.
someplace in there, end of August or first part of September. You know, and I was at that meeting. and-
Yeah.
And
But
it
I
looked
think,
like, I mean,
were
we
you-
kind of made
was-
progress at that meeting, and I
was-
haven't really heard anything in the last
Oh,
90 days,
okay.
you know, so.
I'll double check with Jeff Weldon
Yeah.
on that, because for some reason, your name came up in my mind that you and Jeff or somebody were gonna.
A group was gonna get together.
Yeah, they were gonna. You guys
Bring some
were.
information
Yep.
back.
And
We'll
I
have to
actually,
review that and see
I
that
stopped and
happened.
talked to East Dakota, what's his?
Yeah, Jay Gilbertson.
Yeah, Jay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I stopped and talked to him end of last week, and maybe, I thought, you know, that they were gonna ask him for some recommendations, and if had known anything, and he hadn't known anything yet either, so,
Would you do this for me?
sure will.
Visit with Jeff Weldon and Jay Gilbertson, and kind of keep that ball rolling.
I sure would.
Okay, I'd appreciate that.
20 years I've been at this, so I'm not gonna drop it.
Okay.
You're gonna quit
Okay.
now.
And thanks you
Thanks,
guys
Doc.
for your
Yep.
time here.
You
Doc,
bet.
you're
Thank you.
on your item 6, and out of 22 items, but you're item 6. It's not going away.
All right.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Commissioner Krogman.
Okay, on the 12th, turn this on. All right, on the 12th, Commissioner Wyseth and I met with Rick Egebrecht from Navita. And he called us and asked to meet. We're, again, appointed as kind of the liaisons for that project, and it sounds like things are going well. And he wanted us to update the road agreement. Last January, we had approved the road agreement. It had our signature, but not theirs. So it's not an enforceable one or anything like that. But we need to change some dates because basically we're 1 year later. And so a couple changes there. So we got that to Abby. And Abby obviously is very busy here this week and stuff. And so she's going to look it over, recommend the changes, and we'll probably be bringing that back here before the first of the year to have that in effect. There are potential they could have their whole funding package, everything ready to go here by mid-December is what they're hoping for. And so they wanted that road agreement ready to go, and so we can move forward. We had some questions in there about how quickly we can move forward because, you know, we do bid letting coming up here again, similar situation as 34th, but, and we asked about the CDI doing the engineering and stuff, and Rick sent an email back to us saying he met with Kerry and that he's got his engineering and stuff like that, surveying stuff done already. So that we could move forward here in the building of the road here this fall, basically, is what we look at. So that'll be something we'll be coming here in the next few weeks, coming forward, moving forward. They want to get going, and they were even saying if they got their full stuff, they would even start pouring this winter to get a head start and stuff like that. So anyway, that was the update there from Novita. So it sounds like things are moving forward there. And so we'll need to keep up on our, I think, don't we have to have quarterly, Stacy, for our grants that we have for that road, we have to have quarterly reports and stuff. And so end of the year, I'm guessing we'll need to send some reports to peers.
Actually, one was just due last week.
Oh, okay. So, well, things are changing a little bit. So
Yes.
we'll move forward on that. We just need to make sure we stay on top of that on our part to make sure these grants are
Right, yeah,
still
I
there for us.
submitted, the most recent quarterly report was due, I think, the 13th of November, so I got that sent off last week.
Okay.
Yeah, and most of it's just dates and a slight corporate name change, and, but, I'm sorry, just most were dates and corporate name change, but there was some concern about 475th, because there's going to be some use of that road, and about that they will take care of it with that treatment and eliminate dust, and we added a couple things for the conditional use to one section of the road agreement, and just to tighten it up, make sure perfectly clear who's doing what and everything. So,
Okay. I want to thank you guys for the efforts you've made on that subcommittee, and I guess I would suggest this, that Ryan and Tom maybe bring back a recommendation or we should be having some kind of a formal working agreement with CDI as we're moving into this now. I mean, I think it's time that we make that agreement, that contract or whatever it is.
And we had kind of talked to Rick about that you know, we've gone as far as we want to go, you know, as far as laying out funds and stuff until we know that you are
exactly
funded. And so that conversation has gone with Kerry, so Kerry knows that if they get this here January 1st, we're going to probably be entering into that type of stuff to get this going. So, but
right, but I think we're looking, you know, we've been working with CDI through this process, and I think it's been a gentleman's agreement at this point, but I think we're nearing a point now that maybe we should have something more formal, and it can be constructed so that nobody's in a difficult position if everything fell apart. But I mean, they need to know that they've got this, everything happens correctly, they've got this work to do, just like we were talking earlier with the bid process. You know,
I understand.
so
I
appreciate that.
I think we're getting close to that, and again, I think we're waiting for that final, and that first January meeting, we can move forward. And,
Good.
You know, so.
Good. Commissioner Wyseth.
Oh, hold on.
Oh,
I'm not done yet.
you're not done
That
yet.
was
Sorry.
just my first meeting. Yeah, and then I went to the 8-county meeting here yesterday, and I agree with Commissioner Miller there that it was a very one thing I think that came out of it for me is, you know, we work very well, you know, with the city, and we work with SDSU, and we work with, I think we're getting to the point here where we're going to have to start working with other counties on stuff too, to be more with efficiencies. Regional jails are becoming an issue. I mean, a county themselves, it seems like, have a difficult time doing their own jail and building a brand new jail and keeping it full and keeping it profitable without going broke. And so to me, you're looking at that type of capital improvement may need some regional and stuff there too. And I think that was the thing. I think Cottington County had a bond issue that failed by 70 to for their jail. They wanted to build a regional jail there, and it's failed. I shouldn't say miserably, but you're not coming back after a 70 to 30 defeat real quick, because you got some. And they worked real hard at it. You know, the commissioners there talked about, they went door to door, handed out stuff just to see why they needed it. You know, their inmate population is, 85, and they're at 76. So they're and that's if everything works out to get 85 people there. And then they're contracting with, 3 or 4 different counties to bring in, and that's about 9% of their inmates and stuff. And so, you know, that came up, more of a regional thing. And then also the drainage, you know, if the task force in the state comes back and wants a watershed district, that's going to incur a lot of different counties involved in that. And so all of that stuff kind of came up, that we're all dealing with the similar or same type of issues there. And so I think we're going to have to look at a regional cooperation between counties and stuff is similar to what we do on a local level. And that's my main thing, because we're all three talking about major situations, I think, so.
Well, I think we're a good example in this county that things have to, you know, the seed is planted somewhere and then it grows.
Yeah.
And I think other counties are looking at Brookings County, realizing that collaboration with these other entities, you can get things done. And now the seed is enlarged to the point that counties realize that I'm not going to lose my identity by cooperating with somebody.
Right. So. And then last week I was at the National Association of Realtors, and I just, you know, we're worried about, you know, our roads and bridges and stuff. And there are a lot of associations that are also, we got a transportation booklet, because I serve on a local issues committee there in the national, and we got talking about federal and state funding for roads and bridges. And, you know, we're talking local about it, but nationwide, they're discussing this whole thing and how this could all change. And a lot of organizations are getting on board because, you know, for NAR, you know, they're concerned about housing and infrastructure and stuff like that, and developments and growth. And if we don't have it, what's it going to do to selling homes? And so I think a lot of these organizations nationwide are putting these out, you know, to that. It's something that we'll have to just keep an eye on too. So, and then at the end here, I have ICAP tomorrow and BDC tomorrow, and then they moved the hospital board to the 20th. But I will be in Sioux Falls for work. So I don't know if there's anybody else that wanted to sit on the hospital board meeting Thursday night, 6 o'clock, to cover in, again, ex officio, not voting, more information. I can get a report from last time, but if somebody wanted to cover for me there, I won't be able to be there. Usually I don't have all 3 meetings in the same week. Usually that's a week later, but because of the holidays. So,
buddy?
I had extension board that night.
So,
Ryan, keep in touch with me. Maybe I can run up there. And,
okay.
oh, and Tom?
Maybe. I can't find
All right, between the 3 of us, let's communicate, and we'll see that we get somebody up there.
All right.
Okay.
All I have. Thank you.
Are you done?
I am. Finally.
Okay. Commissioner Wyseth.
Okay, November 6th was the planning and zoning following our meeting. Went pretty ordinary, other than we went in executive session to discuss legal matters. And it was basically the first rodeo for many planning and zoning board members to have the appeal process. And then, of course, there was concern. Of course, Bob, you know, been around Bob. But anyway, it was a very good discussion, I guess. Then November 7th, the full board of Growth Partnership met. I mentioned that they may be going in a new direction, and they're pursuing this. Unfortunately, it involves confidential matters with other businesses, and hopefully, let's see, when am I meeting with the regular meeting, we're going to have this all nailed down. Oh, the 21st. We'll have something to report after the 21st, and it'll all be positive. The 12th, I was with Ryan on Novita. That noon, I tried to hustle over, and Megan and Michelle were at the 211 meeting, and that was sort of interesting how that's going to work, and that we're going to be part of that process, and that people need information, and we'll see how our dollars work and how many people use it. And it was a a lot of different agencies there besides county government. And the key is that they all have a responsibility to keep their site up to date. But they explained how you have to have keywords and everything to, so how people, when they get in the process, how the choices of their help, because we have more than one offering the same kind of help. But yeah, Megan, go ahead.
I was just going to add, people I've been talking to, I have been updating them on that program that will hopefully start here in a couple months. But they were careful to say that they explained how the database works. They explained how 14 counties in South Dakota are utilizing it. They explained that in Sioux Falls alone, they received 40,000 calls. And I think statewide it was around 58,000. So it's a used system already, but most of the country, their whole state is 100%. So we're kind of falling short and they want to ramp us up. They did say that if they don't have a useful resource database, that they will not go live until it is complete, where we have the data to offer the services. And these services can be as simple as, I have used furniture, I want a place to donate it, where should I drop it off? Or it could be a mental health issue, suicidal issues. The people on the phone are trained to handle just information as well as emergency type scenarios. And once they feel they have a database that's complete, they said that they were going to have a big social media campaign around it and posters so that the word is on the street. And obviously I told them that we would like to have that material to put on our social media pages and throughout the county. So that, I guess, is my tidbit.
Thank you, Megan. And the kickoff is the second month on the 11th day, 2/11. So
That's creative.
Even I could remember that.
And one thing that we wanted to check out is, it was mentioned to us that there is a way to program our phone where we don't have to dial 9 out. Because right now we dial 9911 to get 911. And she said in all of her experience, systems that have that requirement, there's a way to trigger it so you don't have that. And the same trigger would be for the 211, where you wouldn't have to dial 9 out. So we have to research. I don't know.
That was a good point. And who's our provider? Swiftel? Yeah, how in the heck, if our employees, Vicki, you had an emergency and you needed to dial 911, you'd have to go 9991. Well, that's the first thing I'd think of when I'm all nervous, you know. So that came up. Well, the same with the 211, which isn't an emergency, but, you know, that's something to look into. That, I mean, with today's technology.
So you got to get on your access line, where you hit 9 and then 911. That would be confusing.
Oh, yeah, especially in an emergency when you're on the top of your game. On the 17th, of course, I was at the Sioux Valley meeting, or in DeSmet, and it was, Marty's gone, but when it comes to jails, Roberts doesn't have enough customers, and County has too many. And there was the discussion of the new judicial law and how it affects, and so far, you know, I quick text Marty for some information. We're kind of holding our own here, which is unusual. Credit to our college students for the age demographics that we have and the population. We're doing pretty good. And I thanked all the counties for sending wonderful students to SDSU, because when they get here, by and large, other than a few minors, I mean, they're a great bunch. And so we're pretty fortunate. Then last night, East Central Behavior Health, I told them I possibly might not be around, and I just expressed concern they're having some more bylaw changes and previous bylaws, and now they're operating under the older bylaws, and that they still haven't passed a budget approved by the full board, only by their executive committee, and it's in violation of their bylaws. So I gave them, for a guy that doesn't like to follow rules, I did point out many rules that they're not following, and they need to, they could expose, they have a fiduciary responsibility as board members. They got a lot of new ones, a lot of new good ones. That's very encouraging. But they do have fiduciary's responsibility to run these to know what they're doing, take it very serious. And so then, by the way, that gave me when Ms. Elwine was still here, we probably need to send a letter out to all the boards that the commissioners serve on and make sure that they have insurance on us while we're there. I think we did that. That was one, yeah. And so is that probably an annual? Otherwise, you never know when one of them will let it slip by or something. It's maybe a good practice for them to be notified that they need to make sure they have errors and omissions for any commissioner that serves on.
Us?
I think, yeah, last year, this came up again.
Yes.
And so Stephanie had sent out an email to all the boards that were on there to respond back if you have errors
Right.
and omission insurance that covers the board members over a lawsuit, that they're not personally held liable. And what she had reported back was that that all of them do, that everybody that we sit on has that insurance on there. And so I guess, what Commissioner Weisseth is saying is maybe if we're sending a letter at the beginning of the year saying this is who's going to represent on the board, maybe that letter has to be, or something in there saying it's understood that you have, insurance for each board member, just to communicate with them to make sure that they do. I don't know.
Understood, maybe. I think she required, you might look into it. I think she required something of.
She did require some proof, but I thought that was for the other board members. I thought ours covered us.
I think it was for
Maybe-
us that
maybe
we were
it was.
covered there, but we can resolve all that, but you can look into it, and, yeah. And coming up, we have the two planning zoning meetings, one to go over the comp plan all afternoon one day, and then have a meeting with the legal counsel. So that's 2 different days. We got a letter about Alumni Green, and the commissioners should attend the alumni meeting. I am a member of the Alumni Green, and Madera is not closing. So the media can report the Madera is not closing, and so people can relax. I have met with our new commissioners, Larry Jensen, Leanne Pierce, and kind of began some sort of an orientation process. But I told them that Stacy will be putting one together. It'll be her first time with the orientation process for new commissioners. And I thought any of you that have suggestions of what should be included in an orientation, it's been a while since you guys been oriented. You were 4 years ago, and Ryan only 2 years ago. What should be included in that process? Please pass it on to Stacy, and at some point she'll give them the tour of the building and da-da-da, and that Laura needs to be prepared to give all the, the health and all that. So they'll be notified, and I did give them a calendar and what the appointments are and kind of just visited a little bit. So got them up to speed a little bit, took away some of your thunder, but they had some questions and just got the ball rolling. I told them you'd notify them as soon as you're ready to go. So if you have suggestions, what should be included in an orientation for new commissioners. And then I guess we can talk in the future, but we do have something to talk about, I guess, in work session about IT. And the only other thing I kind of regret about this day after Christmas and working till 5 o'clock on Christmas Eve, quite frankly, what kind of business are we going to have from 3 to 5 o'clock on Christmas Eve day? I mean, it just, it seems like that we should, and I just thought of when she's talking about, and we had this on the agenda, the first time looking at it didn't sink in, but quite frankly, what kind of work goes on from 3 to 5 when the banks are closed and a lot of the universities closing and people are, they're going shopping, this last minute shoppers or whatever. So I don't know if we can do anything about it or what your thoughts are, but it did occur to me that I just hate having people waiting, doing something that's a waste of time.
Well, I think, we've had this discussion in the past and kind of history is that the ramifications if you start doing things. And you got the sheriff's office that can't close and the jailers that can't leave and everybody, and how that snowballs down into, it affects everybody a little different. And I think basically what you say, there's nothing's going to happen. But I think in most cases, a lot of the employees take a half a day vacation, take a few hours of comp, take time off anyway. You're probably not going to find many people in the building at 5 o'clock anyway. But
So-
I think you have to keep.
So Vicky finds a volunteer herself to man
I think
this
it'll be
abandoned post.
skeleton crew type thing.
Okay, well, I
what they'll do.
understand that. Okay, very good. Thank you. Dennis. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Didn't really have much for meetings. Had a good camp. Slept out in the cold for 4 days, but it was a great time. Then a couple of the committees I'm on that not locally but nationally, of course, with the EPA and working on the waters of the U.S. is one of the things we've been assigned to, as well as the coal emissions. And so we've formalized our recommendations to the administrator, and probably more common sense than a lot of the Beltway bureaucrats are going to enjoy, but we've got it forwarded to them. And it was with interest I noticed we got a letter from NACO that they now, after the election, can see the change in the makeup of the Congress, that probably we're going to end up getting some delays in any implementation until there's clarification. And if we wait for the federal government to clarify things, we don't have to worry about that proposed regulation for a long time. But I will assure you that local governments are listened to on that advisory board by the administrator. And she's probably got a little more common sense than we typically give cabinet level people, but she understands listening to the people and the concerns they got about trying to be over-regulated. And I keep telling her, I said, the most important thing we can do is educate rather than regulate. And I said, look where we've come from since 1972. Our rivers aren't burning like they used to. And she agreed. So hopefully we've kind of got that toned down, and we're not going to be worrying about those things. And Ryan, infrastructure is huge. Everywhere you go, that's what you hear. But I would encourage any of the board members. I know through our budgeting process, we allow travel to a national meeting each year. And would be absolutely nothing wrong if the 3-seated commissioners could take February, was it 22nd to the 24th or something like that, and go to the legislative conference. You'd get to meet a lot of people. You get an opportunity to go up to the Hill and meet with not necessarily your senators or representatives. You can go along with a commissioner from another state. And oftentimes that's important. They'll introduce you to that staff person or that senator. You can tell them what's going on in your part of the country, because oftentimes they don't know. So I'd encourage anybody, at least some of you, to get to the legislative conference, because that's very educational. So I guess with that, I would end my report. Does anybody else have anything at this point? We've got noted in our packets the correspondence that we received. Anybody have any questions on any of that correspondence? There was quite a bit of it. If not, then I will declare the meeting adjourned, and we'll move on into the work session. After a little break.